25th Amendment. They would bring up the 25th Amendment?
Yes, actually, they would say we're not sort of in the mid-period. We're not at a 25th Amendment level yet. Or they would...
It's alarming.
All right, the mainstream media dedicating hours of coverage to this new Michael Wolff book that absolutely trashes President Trump, while they virtually ignore a very booming economy, a positive stock market, and some pretty serious news regarding the reopening of the Clinton investigation.
This, as a new Pew Research report shows, media bias in the U.S. is the worst in the world. The United States coming in dead last, with just 21% of Trump supporters saying the media is unbiased.
Here to weigh in on this, former speechwriter for President George W. Bush and CEO of American Majority and GOP strategist Ned Ryan. Ned, thanks so much for coming in this morning to talk about one of our favorite topics, which is the media has... despite amazing ratings under the Trump administration, everybody's going gangbusters. Right. They hate this president, even though he's made them so rich.
No, and this is the thing that I tell people, listen, we need the media. The media is a vital institution. Yeah. We want a free and honest press, but this Trump derangement syndrome has gotten into the media so much that they can't see straight when they're dealing with Trump. And, we see this poll, but I remind people, too, back in October, there was a poll at Politico that showed 46% of the American people think they make stuff up.
Right.
Not biased, but actually make stuff up about Trump.
46%.
And then you look at Gallup. Gallup does a poll about Americans' view of the press, so they've considered it trustworthy. It was in the 70 percentile in the 1970s. It's now 32%, and I joke it's probably the lowest it's been since the invention of the printing press. But this shouldn't be a surprise. You look at how these people vote. A lot in the media, I think it was over 90% voted for Obama. A lot of these guys are Democrat operatives masquerading as journalists. And it's, in some ways, 2017 has been extremely refreshing because the masquerade is over. We now see these people for who they are. And I think the thing that's also been interesting to me is they want to be seen as referees of a game, and yet they've inserted themselves into the game.
Right, you can't be both.
You can't be both. They want to be both. And the American people are saying you're either a referee or you're part of the game. And once you enter the game, you're no longer seen as objective. And the American people are really starting to peg them as, we know who you are. You're right. Players in the game. You're not referees anymore.
You made reference to that Politico poll, and I want to go back to that. And it's about the media fabricating stories specifically about President Trump. 46% believe, yes, the media is fabricating stories about President Trump. If this continues going in this direction, if the media doesn't stop this, where do you see this going?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think they have real issues on credibility. I mean, they are undermining the very institution in their attacks on Trump when people are saying, we don't believe you, we don't think you're objective anymore, we think you have a bias. And the thing that I've told people is the media wants to come off as these purveyors of truth and rightness, just another guy with an opinion. Mm-hmm. And it's really gotten to the point where I view them as opinionists, not journalists, not reporters, just another guy with an opinion coming down from them, coming into this arena and saying, we have our own specific worldview, we have our own specific narrative that we're going to drive. We just want a media that will actually say, here are the facts, right. You decide.
But do people eventually stop listening?
They do, and I think that's what the problem is. And the thing that's funny is to see the media's reaction. They're so biased, they're insulting as well. There's this certain elitism where we're telling you what to think. Mm-hmm. They insult people, and then they don't understand why people won't listen to them anymore.
Let me ask you this. I mean, when you go overseas and you watch the news in other countries, it comes off as very boring. It's very dry. It's all information. I actually love watching the BBC and some of these networks because you're getting raw information. Right. You form the opinion yourself.
Right.
In America, I want to ask you this because we've created this to be more of a business than it is journalism anymore. And it's so profit-driven. It's owned by major corporations. Opinion sells in this country. Opinion leads to bias.
That's right.
And that's the difference between American journalism and journalism, I think, throughout the rest of the world.
No, and I think you'll see where certain channels, certain print outlets are going a certain way because they think it's good for business. Sure. And certain channels have found a certain niche in the market where they realize that people that are watching, they want to hear a certain line, a certain story. It is profit-driven in many ways, some of this. And the sad thing is, though, it is a polarization that's taking place in America, and it's being driven in some ways by this whole profit model. It's leading to increased polarization, which is not a good trend for the American people, for this country as a whole, to get us to the point where we actually have a lot in common. We all, as American people, we have a lot in common, but this trying to drive us apart in pursuit of profits.
And people only hearing what they want to hear anymore, and not hearing the other side.
That's the other thing, too, and it leads to a breakdown in dialogue dialogue. And this is a thing that I hope with really quick on this whole immigration debate. There's actually a lot in common that people have on this whole immigration debate. Yeah. A lot of reasonable people on this side and on the other side. Let's get to the point where we can actually come to the right conclusions.
See how long that takes. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Great
we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
It is almost 20 minutes after the hour. Is WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange running out of places to hide? The message he just sent to the world.
And Big Brother is watching. Facebook has invaded our smartphones. Now it wants to invade your home with a camera and a microphone. 11 suspected terrorists are complaining about being stuck at Guantanamo Bay, and their plan to get out is to use one of President Trump's tweets to sue the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice. The detainees' lawyers say this tweet, saying in part there should be no further releases from Gitmo, claims that he plans to hold them forever, violating international law. The White House has not yet responded. All right, the House shooting down proposed limits on government surveillance powers while reauthorizing the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. That's FISA. At the center of this debate was Section 702, which allows the NSA to collect text messages and emails from foreigners without a warrant, even when they are talking with Americans. That's where it gets complicated. The failed amendment would have set limits for how authorities could use the information. Rand Paul is threatening to filibuster this bill, which now heads to the Senate.
Big Brother is listening. Rumors swirling that Facebook is set to unveil their own smart home device this year. And with it comes a wide-angle camera, microphone, and speakers all in your home. So does this raise privacy concerns? Here now is Kurt, the cyber guy. Kurt, you got to look at the camera.
Huge.
Trying to get a close-up shot of you.
Trying to get the latest news from Facebook because they're talking a lot all of a sudden. We called them yesterday about this story, and it's rather remarkable. A device being put together, apparently about a 15-inch monitor that has cameras, microphones, and artificial intelligence inside that they want in your home to be listening to you and to be able to look at you. They're going to tell you that it has to do with, according to a website called Cheddar, that this is a way to interface with the rest of your friends in a way to where you can walk up and it recognizes you and say, oh, hi, Jillian, who do you want to talk with right now? And boom, it goes and connects you. The reality is you're probably going to be turning on the device in a way where you agree that Facebook can listen and watch at any given moment.
There's so many things that can listen and watch now.
Right, exactly. And the more and more comfortable we get with it, the further they stretch that idea into our privacy that we would have never allowed, say, 5-10 years ago. Reality is, though, Facebook also talking about the idea that they want to tweak how our timeline comes together. And after we called them about this story, saying, are you really developing something like this? They said, we have no comment on that.
All right, give us some of your tips for this now.
All right, here's what you want to do. No matter what you're connecting with, this is a wake-up call again to say, how am I set up on Facebook?
Right.
What are my privacy settings?
Because
so I just want to show you this. Look at this.
Change the settings sometimes.
Yeah, do this tune-up today if you get a chance. So right here, you just go to your Facebook page, log on. Top right corner, you'll see right here, you click that, and you go to settings, and then boom, all this comes up. And what comes up here is the idea of being able to see who is seeing your timeline, how many people have access to it, who, by the way, can post on your timeline.
And then who can see what you post, who you're friends with, who you're not friends with. I don't even know.
And what can people see? Because recently, Facebook coming under fire again because accidentally they allowed advertisers to have access to your own home phone number that was put there. And now you have an ability to go in and say, what's there right now? How has it tweaked? Because this is a fluid kind of setting for Facebook. You want to look at it every so often. Today's a great day to look at it.
Thank you for the reminder.
How am I exposed to the rest of the world?
Do you like this idea?
Of this device that they're coming out with? You know, they have a building called Building 8. It's like Area 51 for Facebook. They have mind control technology that they have admitted to exploring in this building. Do I like it? I don't know yet. I have to see it. There's always the convenience factor versus just this massive invasion into our own lives. What my biggest complaint of Facebook is that it takes this away.
Right.
And there's a lot less of us.
This.
We like this in-person stuff. And there's a lot more of this nonsense coming at us. Facebook seems to they're starting to have a message where they're today announcing that they're going to change the timeline so that it's more about who my friends and family are and what they're saying rather than brands and who they think I should be hearing from.
Kurt, thank you for the tips. Thank you for the reminder. Go check your settings. Thanks for being here.
Good to see you, Julie.
Rob.
All right, guys, thanks so much. 27 minutes after the hour, a break in the case of a college student found murdered in a park. His friend now a suspect, the brand new evidence, and his outrageous alibi.
Their purpose is to chip away at our nation's promise of dignity and security for working families. It's really sad.
Good Friday morning and welcome back. The officers who planned the Niger mission that left 4 American soldiers dead could face punishment. Military officials telling CNN the officers may be reprimanded for not following correct procedure. The soldiers died in October when ISIS-affiliated militants attacked. The military is set to release its final report on the ambush at the end of the month. The mystery is growing behind the disappearance of an Ivy League student found dead. University of Pennsylvania student Blaze Bernstein's body was found at a park outside Los Angeles 1 week after meeting a friend there. We are now learning detectives spoke with the friend 2 days after the disappearance and noticed small scratches on his hands. The friend claimed the marks were from a fight club. Detectives say the friend appeared nervous during his interview. After more than 5 years of hiding out in its London embassy, Julian Assange now has Ecuadorian citizenship. The WikiLeaks founder announcing it by tweeting this picture of himself wearing the national soccer jersey. But he still cannot leave, the UK rejecting Ecuador's request to grant Assange diplomatic status, saying the only way to solve the problem is for him to face justice. A 6-year-old boy who survived the Sutherland Springs Church massacre heading home in style. More than 2 months later, Ryland Ward, who was shot 5 times, is finally leaving the hospital. And the person that picked him up, the first responder that saved his life.
I was the one that pulled him out of the church. Ryland's eyes just kept looking at me. Never took his eyes off of me. Reached out for my hand. I knew from there it was going to be a special bond.
Gives you chills, huh? Little Ryland is the last survivor to leave the hospital after a gunman opened fire on a Texas church congregation, leaving 26 innocent people dead. Rob.
All right, Jillian, thanks. Do you want free health insurance? Well, if you are able-bodied, then get a job, go to school, or volunteer. That is a message from President Trump to people who use or apply for Medicaid. The new guidelines opening the door for states to cut off benefits to those who don't have an approved reason. So is this a good idea? Here now to debate that is the Executive Director of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, and Executive Director of Social Security Works, Alex Lawson. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on this morning. Let's start, Charlie. You know, this is an interesting idea. It's never really been it's never been implemented in this program in 50 years, right?
Right. I think it's a wonderful idea. Look, the best social program is a job. The goal of government programs should not try to get to people to stay there as long as possible. It should be trying to get people off of those government programs. And 40% of people that receive Medicaid are not working, able-bodied adults. Now, this does not count people with disabilities or children of the elderly. These are able-bodied adults. And look, they don't even have to find a job. They just have to go try and pursue to try to find a job. They don't actually have to be successful in trying to find one. The key point is that we need to try to get people off of government benefits and back into the workforce. And with this booming economy, this is a wonderful step forward.
Okay. Alex, over to you. I mean, we've got a poll here that says that 70% of people, when they did a study, support the idea of work requirements for Medicaid, that you got to show that you're doing something if you are able-bodied. Now, this all started because states bear some burden in the cost of Medicaid, and they came to the president, I think, looking for support in this and getting people to work. You say this is a bad idea. Tell me why.
Look, this isn't a new idea. It's been around for a long time. It was tested in the 90s, and it's found to do nothing except create a bureaucratic nightmare of red tape. It doesn't save any money. All it does is put an onerous requirement on people who are trying to work. The best way to increase employment in this country is to create jobs, not by taking health care away from people, not by cutting off chemo for somebody who's undergoing chemo treatment for their cancer, and that's exactly what this policy does. Medicaid is the largest provider of long-term care in this country, and this is just a sneak attack on the entire system.
And Alex, you say that most adults that are able to are working when they're on Medicaid already. But do you have a number to back that up? I know you say it's the majority of adults, but can you give me a number there?
I can. So even Heritage Foundation scholars looking at this see that it's a vanishingly small percentage of the 20-ish% that this policy applies to after you exclude the primary recipients of Medicaid, who are seniors,
kids,
children, and people with disability.
Okay, let me let you chime in. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, well, so look, first of all, it's 40% of Medicaid recipients that are not working that are able-bodied, and 40% of 70 million people is a very large number. And look, I will refute this. The goal of government programs should not be trying to keep people there as long as possible. We should try to get people off of government programs and back into the workforce. Medicaid was designed as a temporary health benefit for the working poor, not for people that want to turn a safety net into a hammock. We should try to get people off of government benefits and back into the workforce. And thanks to this booming economy, this offers an opportunity to do so.
And Alex, that's a very classic, Republican line, is that we're out here trying to get people off social assistance, off of, their dependence on government. And this sounds like a way that they're trying to do that. What do you say?
What this is it's the establishment Republicans again making President Trump a liar from his promise not to cut Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. This is an attack on the entire Medicaid system, including the fact that it's the largest provider of long-term care in this country. Nursing home care, $97,000 a year. That's what they're going after here, so don't think it stops here.
Though. I mean, again, it doesn't affect elderly. This is for people that are able-bodied and under the age of 60 that can find a job, volunteer, or try to find a job. It does not affect elderly. Well, don't demagogue the issue. Come on.
It's a Trojan horse attack on the entire system.
Okay, well, you both have different numbers, and I'd be curious to see what the real numbers are, and I'm sure it's a tough number to find, is how many able-bodied people are not working while sitting on Medicaid, or I'm sorry, Medicaid, and that is at the heart of the issue, I'm sure. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on this morning and debating your sides regardless, and thanks for dealing with the drilling as well. All right,
thank you.
The drilling that will never end.
It never ends.
It is 38 minutes after the hour. The NHL and the Army about to face off. The legal battle on the ice just beginning.
No citizenship, no welfare. The new plan to weed out refugees in Europe. Should America consider this same idea? Brexit leader Nigel Farage weighs in on that coming up next.
Brazil is now following France's lead in combating fake news. The federal police announcing their latest plan, tweeting this photo, saying they are creating a specially formed group of government officials to combat fake news during the 2018 primary elections. This comes after French President Emmanuel Macron introduced new legislation last week, downright outlawing fake news during election years.
All right, the U.S. Army is taking on an NHL team over its name and colors. The Army filing a challenge to the Las Vegas Golden Knights, trademarking the name, saying it already has exclusive rights to that. The name Golden Knights has referred to the Army's parachute team for decades, along with the black and gold color scheme that they have. The Army claims that people could get confused. The team says it doesn't know of anyone coming to a game expecting to see anybody parachute. We'll see what happens with that one. Yeah.
So the Swiss government is putting their foot down to those living off state handouts. The country now banning citizenship to anyone who has lived on welfare in the country in the past 3 years unless they pay back the money they received.
The move making it impossible for asylum seekers and migrants to become citizens. Here now to weigh in, former UK Independence Party leader and Fox News contributor Nigel Farage. Nigel, thanks so much for coming on with us today. We appreciate it. Is it interesting to you to see how the mindset in the reality of all of these migrants coming into Europe, how the mindset has changed among some of these nations?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, don't forget the British referendum, to a very large extent, was about controlling borders. And whilst, of course, civilized countries want to try and treat genuine refugees fairly, what's been happening in Switzerland and elsewhere is that the welfarism system has been a magnet, attracting people into those countries. Now, Switzerland is a very democratic country, the most democratic in Europe. It's the one place where the politicians fear the electorate because they can call a referendum on any of these issues. So we've seen this move in Switzerland, similar moves in Austria, and there are some really big fundamental changes taking place across European politics.
So there are 45,804 refugees with asylum status in Switzerland. That was in 2016. Obviously, that number changes a bit year to year. But my question to you is, do you agree with this move, and how do you see it playing out?
Well, I do agree with the move because, if somebody wants to get citizenship in a country, then I think to prove that they can speak the language, to prove that they've, in the course of the last 3 years, integrated and made some friends in the community, and to show that they're prepared to pay their way. And if you like, if they've received welfare during that period, it's kind of like paying back taxes. And I think the Swiss are absolutely wholly justified in doing this, yes.
Nigel, in this country, the far left, who oftentimes are people that are almost embarrassed to call themselves American in a lot of cases, they have this view of Europe and of nations like Switzerland as the shining example of what America should hope to be someday if we ever can get there. And these are the people that have always called for open borders and called for socialistic policy. When they see Switzerland make a move like this, what does that say to them?
Well, you're right. I mean, to Hillary Clinton and to those further left than her on the American political spectrum, they've always looked at Europe, and in particular the European Union, as you say, the shining city on the hill, where everything is totally civilized. Look, I promise you, that the British referendum of 2016 marked a pivot point in the way in which Europe is organised. And now what you're seeing in country after country are citizens demanding of their governments they put in place reasonable measures. And I genuinely believe that the days of open borders, the days of really unlimited welfarism, I genuinely believe those days are coming to an end. And what's happened in Switzerland overnight is simply a symptom of that.
Nigel, before we let you run, President Trump canceled his trip to London. What are your thoughts on that move?
Very disappointed. We have, an amazing business relationship between our two countries, a great military relationship, a great security relationship. We are, amongst the best friends of any two countries in the whole world. We have an American president who, unlike the previous one, actually likes this country, put the bust of Winston Churchill back in the Oval Office, and he's been visiting France and Poland and Italy and Saudi Arabia and China and elsewhere, and he's still not been here. And I have to say, I find the whole thing really very disappointing. He's made comments about the real estate deals that were done with regard to the old American embassy and the new one. I can't comment on that. I guess he's better qualified to comment on real estate than anybody else. But something else that might have been in his mind is that we have the left in this country, the Labour Party, led by Jeremy Corbyn, who's virtually a Marxist. We have the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, all saying that if Trump comes, there should be massive, large-scale demonstrations and protests. And I wonder whether that might just be a part of his calculation, that maybe at this moment in time, he doesn't need those optics. Either way, I have to say, I'm very sad about it.
Yeah, he doesn't feel welcome. I think that's very clear on the decision there. Nigel, thank you so much for coming on this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, 47 minutes after the hour, let's check in with Brian, see what's coming up. We got 3 more hours of this.
Yes, 3 more hours of this. And could you act a little bit more enthusiastic when you say that, Rob, please? At least Jillian was when I saw her in the hall before.
I'm very excited.
Yes, because you have to come and watch the show and be on the show.
Yep.
Hey, let me tell you what's on deck over the next 3 hours, and hopefully Rob will approve. Some great guests, including Ben Shapiro, #1 podcast I think I can read in the country right now. Governor Rick Scott here seems to win his battle with the White House on drilling. But we're going to be talking about the president getting a bipartisan deal on immigration. Not happy with the initial overture. Made some comments. Will he be able to overcome that today? Will he address that? We're also going to talk about major progress in the Fusion GPS investigation. It turns out the leader of that company was briefing AP reporters, according to our reporter. We're going to talk about what all of that means, all coming up on Fox and Friends. I urge you, I know it's Friday, but please get dressed.
All right, welcome back to Fox Business Alert. Good news and bad news from Walmart, the world's largest retailer, abruptly closing Sam's Clubs nationwide, laying off thousands of workers.
The move coming just hours after the retail giant announced an increase to their hourly minimum wage. Tracy Krasko from our sister network, Fox Business, here with the details you need to know about. Tracy.
Good morning. Yeah, so the two announcements came almost within the same breath, but Walmart is closing 63 of its Sam's Club locations across the country. So far, we've heard of them closing in Texas, New York, Virginia, and Arizona. We haven't heard of a full list yet, but this is potentially laying off thousands of employees. Many of them were not given any notice at all. So some of these locations will be turning into e-commerce distribution centers. And people that are losing their jobs are encouraged, of course, to apply for some of these other jobs. But if you do have a Sam's Club membership, you can return it, get a refund if your location is shutting down.
So Walmart gives the bonuses, Sam's Club. I think the Sam's Club is probably the Costco effect, I would assume, of a big competitor there. Okay, we're talking. I don't know why you wanted me to toss to this story. You're going to get me in trouble. Hooters is going to deliver. I'm not going to say anything else.
Yes. So, you know, of course, part of going to a Hooters restaurant is the waitresses, the whole experience there. But some people may not be into that, a little embarrassed to go there, but they still want the food. So, yes, Hooters is getting into the delivery business. Food delivery is actually one of the largest growing sectors of the restaurant business. And so they're jumping in and they're going to be offering this now at its restaurants. What's interesting is the CEO said many people wouldn't step foot in our restaurants, but they want our products. So even he's kind of acknowledging that people.
So the women in the tank tops aren't going to be delivering your food.
They are not going to be delivering
Rob's
your
never
food.
going to order delivery.
Well, that's what she said. She was like, who cares if the girls aren't delivering the food? And I also wonder, how good could the food be at Hooters? I mean, that's not why anybody goes there. All right, Tracy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So the producer here is saying, Desiree is saying that they have the best wings. We'll see about that. All right, 54. Well, I don't know why I'm telling you the time. It is 54 minutes after the hour, though. Do you remember this? In case you wanted to know, I am flustered. Remember this iconic Super Bowl Pepsi commercial from way back in 1992?
Do you want us to roll this again, Rob? Well, now Cindy Crawford is returning to her Pepsi commercial past. 26 years later, the 51-year-old model will debut a recreation of the unforgettable ad at this year's Super Bowl on February 4th. It's called This Is the Pepsi, and it will feature her 18-year-old son, Presley Walker Gerber.
Randy Gerber, the luckiest man in the world. It is part of the company's Pepsi Generation campaign honoring the brand's 120-year history, and Cindy Crawford does not age.
No,
I don't know what the woman is doing, but it is something else.
We're coming right back.